Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be looking at a pair of gauntlets which is very draining. It is called the Soul Drainer Vambraces, and it's a pair of gauntlets that we have to think of in a new light because of the changes to weaken, which have gone through on the 2.4 test server. So we have to take a look at the patch notes and read what they had to say about weaken for D2R 2.4 PTR. So this is a patch that is coming, and I want you guys to know this. So it's not here yet, but it is coming. And in the patch, they have made a bonus to weaken of damage reduction now scales based on level from just 33% to now 33% and 1% per level, which means that the effect on Soul Drainer Vambraces has gone up by 3%. So we have, instead of 33%, we are looking at 34, 5, 6, so 36% negative to damage. Now, we'll take a look at what this means for these gloves and for the characters that might use them. But let's take a look at the gloves as a whole first, and then we'll talk about the weaken. So right off the bat, we have 149 defense, which does vary a bit from 129 to 149, and that is because of the enhanced damage variable. We also have a 106 strength requirement on these, and they are elite already, so they can't be upgraded, so that's as high as the strength is ever going to get. We have level 74 requirement on these, which does mean that they're relatively high level gauntlets, or Vambraces, and they are meant for end game. We have 8% chance to cast level 3 weaken on striking, which is absolutely excellent. On striking means it's going to be going off all the time, and we're definitely going to get good effect out of it. We also have a 7% mana stolen per hit, which does vary from 4 to 7. We have 7% lifesteal per hit, which does vary from 4 to 7. We also have negative 50 monster defense per hit, which is going to be very nice to help increase the attack rating on your abilities. So, as you're hitting a monster, their defense is going down, and since the defense is going down on these monsters, you're getting a higher chance to hit them with each successive blow, which of course is very nice. Now, how much defense does each monster have? Well, it varies. So, certain monsters have more defense than others. But as you are hitting them, you are going to reduce their defense with each hit. Not quite as good as a percentage-based defense reduction, but it does stack, believe it or not, with other reductions. So keep that in mind. I'm getting a confuse. I didn't even have them on. I am the smartest. I am the smartest. Let me put my torch in this thing. This thing always makes everything so silly. I just want to show off the weaken effect, and we'll play around with it. So as you can see, we have weaken cast on these guys, and it does reduce their physical damage by a pretty large percentage here. And like I said, in the patch, it's going to be a little bit higher than what it is right now, and it could be very, very useful. And I do want to talk about this in a sort of a more interesting light. So if you have physical damage reduction is the ability to reduce the incoming damage by a certain percentage. So for instance, we have on Storm Shield, Monarch Shield, we have a damage reduced by 35%. Now this caps at 50. So the highest that it can possibly go is 50%. And if you were trying to make your character as tanky as humanly possible, this might actually be the best pair of gauntlets. Because the weaken is going to apply before the monster hits you. And I want to bring up a calculator. I know when I bring up calculators on the screen, it's never a good thing, right? Never a good thing. You're not allowed to bring up calculators on the screen, but that's too bad. You get a calculator today. So I want to do some math for you real quick, all right? Let's assume we have a monster who has a rather large amount of damage. So let's say he's hitting us for 3,000 physical damage, right? So that is a really large hit. But we have 50% physical damage reduction, okay? So we're going to cut this in half. So it's going to go down by 50%, and he's only going to hit us for 1,500. Well, we don't have 1,500 HP. We only have 1,457 is our max. You can just barely see it there around my chair, and this is a lot of freaking damage. Okay, now if we apply our weaken to the monster, who's still doing 3,000 damage, we are going to get a very nice bonus of negative 33% plus 1% per level for a total, I believe, of 33, 34, 35, 36. It's either 36 or 35. I don't know if the original 1% counts. But it's, let's say, 36%. So minus 36% before it hits us, okay? So before it ever touches us, we've got a reduction of 1,080, which goes down to 1,920. Then our negative 50% is applying as well. So we have another negative 50%, and the monster's damage goes down to 960, which is now low enough that we can actually take the blow. This is the kind of interesting thing that you can do by stacking Weaken with a really high amount of physical damage reduction. It is going to be absolutely excellent as a defensive mechanic. And if you look at these gloves as a whole, they're very defensive gloves. We have Weaken on striking, which is a defensive ability. We have Mana Steal and Life Steal on striking, which is a very defensive ability. It doesn't kill anything, but it does restore your mana, and it does restore your health and makes it so that you can survive better. We also have pretty nice defense on these of 149 defense. And then the only really offensive ability we have here is the negative 50 monster defense per hit. And you could almost even say that it's a defensive ability, because it allows us to strike more often to apply our life steal and our mana steal, and it allows us to strike more often to apply our weaken on striking. So definitely a very nice pair of gloves. Now, who could actually utilize these? Well, unfortunately, they're missing increased attack speed, which I think is one of the things that people really love to look for on these gloves. But they could work very well on characters that are not very concerned about increased attack speed. Like, for instance, if I was a Blade Fury Assassin and I just want to dual leech with some negative monster defense per hit, or maybe I was a Druid who gets all his increased attack speed from the weapon, or perhaps I was a Whirlwind Barbarian who doesn't necessarily need increased attack speed, from a pair of gloves. Unfortunately, the Whirlwind Barbarian does not get procs on striking, which is very sad. So he would not get the benefit of the weaken. Honestly, all in all, I actually really kind of like these gloves, and this character, believe it or not, was the perfect character to choose for this. His name is GGM Sherman, and his entire job is to be a Sherman tank, to be as strong as humanly possible. Well, I completely forgot about these gloves, and these gloves will literally make him even more tanky than he was before. Now he's rocking probably the best setup that he possibly can to make himself as tanky as humanly possible. Honestly, because he has a massive amount of defense, he has a massive amount of physical damage reduction. He even overprotects himself versus physical damage reduction. So he's actually rocking, I believe it was in his original video, he was rocking like 80% physical damage reduction, which would help protect him obviously against amplified damage and things like that. It is also important to note, though, that because it has a curse on striking, it will overwrite other curses. And this is a big downside. So if you are relying on, for instance, maybe a Decrepify proc from your unique Thresher, if you're relying on an Amplified Damage proc from like a Witch Wild String, or you're relying on a lower resistance proc from something, and I'm trying to think of like Medusa's Gaze or Pus Spitter. This is going to overwrite those. And unfortunately, if you're in a situation where you're relying on a curse to proc on a regular basis, this is going to be a downside, a very big downside for Soul Drainers. Because if you don't want the weaken to proc, if you want something else instead, you obviously are not going to want to use these. And at 8% chance to cast level 3 weaken, it does seem to proc fairly often. I mean, let's go again somewhere, and we'll take a look and see one more time at kind of like the proc chance for these. I'm utilizing a... well, my beast is almost broken. Let's swap out, shall we? As you can see there, we already got a proc. Not really sure where my Confuse is coming from. I also have Life Tap procs on my shield, So as you can see, the life tap and the weaken are fighting each other. They are constantly fighting each other back and forth, and this would mean that you wouldn't be able to utilize these with a life tap proc. Obviously, you can't use them with Dracools because Dracools is, of course, also gloves. But if you had life tap proc on, for instance, Last Wish, or you had life tap proc on Exile, or you had life tap proc on something else, you cannot utilize the life tap proc while you're utilizing these, because it will be a constant war of two curses going back and forth constantly in opposition to each other. So if you do choose these gauntlets, you're probably not going to use other such items that have curse procs on them. Most notably, there is also another item that's coming, a new rune word called Obsession, and I do have a video up on that, which is basically also revolving around the Weaken curse, which is very interesting. I do feel like they need to do a little bit more with Weaken to make it viable, and level 3 Weaken on these gloves probably needs to be beefed up a little bit considering the new change. I feel like they need to take this from level 3 and put it up maybe to like level 10 or something. Would make them more attractive in general, because then instead of 33% plus 2 to 35, you would be 33% plus 10, which would get you to 43%, which would be a lot more attractive than 33% reduction in monster's damage. And of course, it doesn't protect you against elemental damage, only physical. So you got to keep that in mind as well. Let's take a look and see where we could possibly find a pair of these gloves, and we'll see what kind of places we gotta go hunt them down in. Alright, so here we are on Silo's Pen, and we're going to pretend we have 150% Magic Find, players 1, and we're going to look for Soul Drainers. Soul Drainer, the drainers of the soul. There we go. And we're going to do bosses. So let's take bosses, and we got like next to nothing here. Ignoring the quest kills, we've got Diablo in Hell, Baal in Hell, Mephisto in Hell. Not very big list there. Duriel in Hell also has a chance, but he's pretty crappy on his chance, and honestly, he drops a lot of Scrolls of Town portals, so we ignore him. Iswal, for some reason, has a 1 in 21,000 chance, though. I don't know a lot of people who farm Iswal in Hell, though, so that's probably a bad choice. We also have super uniques here. Not very good chances here, at the best chance being 1 in 12,444, so it looks like it's a pretty rare set of gloves. Not a lot of really good choices here. Bonebreaker in the Crypt, 1 in 17,000, he's actually pretty easy to get to. Storm Tree, he's actually pretty easy to get to as well. He's at the beginning of Lower Kurast, I believe, right at the doorway. So he's always there. So a pretty easy one. You could take the Lower Kurast waypoint and then teleport down to him. Let's see here. Corpse Fire in the Den of Evil. 1 in 18,000. That's interesting. Corpse Fire, of course, is always in the Den of Evil and pretty easy to find. You could definitely farm him. A lot of monsters here, like the Chaos Sanctuary, Grand Visor of Chaos, Infector of Souls, Lord Decease. Eldritch the Rectifier also has a pretty decent chance, as well as Shank the Overseer, and Doc Farron and Pindleskin. So I mean, that's your combo right there. Hit up Hephaesto the Armor in River of Flame, get Pindleskin, then teleport down to Doc Farron, and then kill Shank the Overseer, then kill Eldritch the Rectifier, and then teleport all the way up and kill Thresh Socket right there. Thresh Socket. He's at the end of Ariad Plateau. Very nice little combo there. That should work out just fine. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when it's a pair of soul drainers. And as always, keep watching.